Welcome to episode 123 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Charles, Clyde, and Canada edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm here with my co-host Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. We had a really dramatic weekend of racing. Maybe not as dramatic as what people think, but certainly, we had a lot of drama that went on in all NASCAR and Formula One. Sorry, but it was a lot of things that happened. Of course, the title, Charles Leclerc finally won a race, first time since April, and finally got back onto the podium, first time since the Miami GP. So glad to see him back on there. And then, of course, Clyde Elliott went and took the victory at his home track, his actual home track of Atlanta, and saw that. And, of course, I learned that Siren is also pronounced Cyrene for some weird reason. Is what NBC was there at the Dawsonville pool room, so I don't really know what that was all about. But we again heard the siren again for the umpteenth time in Chase Elliott's career since they started talking about that. But that happened, and then all the other racing that we saw this weekend. It was a pretty good weekend of racing if you were watching.
Yeah, definitely. You wanted to go and look at Inbreeders Alley. You just have to go to the Dawsonville pool room. But if you weren't interested in the 86 hits that they sent there with Rutledge, um, Clyde went and won that race. He had a tough battle with a guy who has been in kind of came in around the same time as he did, but has definitely not been as heralded. Somebody who tried to get hired or wanted to get hired by Jeff Gordon and Corey LaJoy. So we'll talk about that, all the carnage that was caused by Ross Chastain, uh, amongst other things in the Cup field. We, of course, Charles Leclerc winning the Austrian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen for once actually getting humbled, which was nice. Um, he didn't have anything to fight the Ferraris and should have been a 1-2 finish for Ferrari, but of course, uh, Carlos Sainz's engine blows up in epic fashion and his car goes aflame. So that Ferrari is pretty cheap if you really are looking for one. Lewis Hamilton gets another podium. Mercedes gets third and fourth, so maximizing points with their car that is definitely only the third best car on the grid. And when it's in traffic, even worse, as you could see by the sprint race. And we'll get into all the other talking points from the midfield and beyond in Formula One. Austin Hill gets to win an Xfinity. I mean, that race was pretty mediocre. Not shocking. And the truck series, we'll get into that. Parker Kligerman gets his first win in 5 years. Henderson Motorsports, a team that's been involved in NASCAR for longer than I've been alive, gets another victory. So it's a big deal for a very small effort. They're beating the big dogs, beating a Cup Series team and Front Row Motorsports, and the likely regular season champion in Zane Smith. I think he probably is a regular season champion, even based on the math. I don't think there's really any math that would work that he wouldn't be the regular season champion as long as he starts at Pocono here in a couple of weeks' time. So great battle between those two. Behind him, it was a lot of argy-bargy, as Calvin Fish would say. We'll get into all those things in NASCAR. The roundup, busy roundup, great weekend for the Americans, or at least on Saturday for the Americans in Formula 2 and Formula 3 at Austria. Logan Sargent did carry it through and made a comeback on Sunday in the feature race in Formula 2. We'll get into the World Endurance Championship at Monza, seeing Alpine get another victory in the hypercar class. I know all women Iron Dames team getting their first pole in GT Pro or GTM, and then also getting on the podium. Supercars at Townsville, Extreme at Sardinia, which saw Ganassi racing with sexy Sarah Price and Kyle LeDuc finally get their first win. Second race didn't work out so well for them, and Rosberg's team wins, which, it seems to be the norm if they don't cheat. SRX at Nashville Fairgrounds had Uncle Bobby Labonte going and getting his first win in nearly 20 years in major motorsport. Big win for him. Interesting weekend. Marco Andretti is looking like he's going to be the champion if he can race this dirt these next 2 weeks well enough. He's going to take the title from his buddy Tony Stewart. They'll be racing at I-55 Speedway in Peevely, Missouri, Ken Schrader's track, and we'll get to see the legend himself, Kenny Schrader, on the telecast this weekend. So looking forward to the interview that Willie T. Ribbs and Kenny Schrader are going to have. Not because Willie T. Ribbs is an interviewer, because we've already seen he's not much of one, but just to see how two great people, two of the great characters the sport has ever seen, just shooting the crap together. This coming weekend, we're going to have World Superbikes at Donington. IMSA GT will be at Lime Rock, and Formula E will be racing in Brooklyn. First, and then so a lot of Northeast action here coming up. You have Formula E this weekend. The next weekend, of course, Pocono. I mean, we also have New Hampshire this coming weekend for Cup and Xfinity, but we'll have Pocono the following weekend. And then IndyCar at Toronto. We'll preview that, New Hampshire Cup and Xfinity. So let's get started here. Charles Leclerc gets the win. I mean, Verstappen qualified on pole on Friday, won the sprint, but it was close. Ferraris were able to stay within reason during the sprint, but really weren't able to do much anything with Verstappen. Whether that was by choice or by some other reason is to be determined later, I guess. In the sense of what happened in the Formula One, I mean, the bigger story of the weekend, I'd be remiss. I just saw something as I'm going through all the results and going through things, harassment towards female fans that took place at Austria this weekend, which is horrendous. Whether they're fans of a certain driver, whether it's Lewis Hamilton, or maybe they look, their appearance is different, the harassment and the abuse and the general weak response by Formula One itself and by Red Bull, amongst others, speaks a lot to what's wrong with the sport. I mean, they talk about We Race as One, and they purport Red Bull and all this, and it's like, yeah, you race as one for whatever puts you over. Whatever works towards your bottom line. But you are willing to go and take fans and make fans uncomfortable and put them in a place where they're not going to want to come back again. It already costs an arm and a leg to go to a Formula One race. But if you're going to make people feel uncomfortable or feel like they're not wanted, you're losing people, honestly. You're losing fans, and you're losing an audience that wants to be involved. And it offends me to the core. It's kind of why I haven't went to NASCAR races for a while, because of, the LCD. And it's like, well, there's really a long shot that you'll run into them. But it's like, you're going to run into it unintentionally. Now, it's beside the point. I guess it's neither here nor there, Josh. But Charles Leclerc going and getting the win on Sunday. Ferrari had the pace. Initially, Red Bull was out there with Verstappen. George Russell and Sergio Perez had contact, turn 4, lap 1. I'm of the argument that it's lap 1 of the race. The Red Bull is definitely a better car. Perez didn't have to crowd George Russell that much. It was proven later by Sebastian Vettel basically giving a whole car's width to Pierre Gasly, and Pierre Gasly cleaned him out like Ross Chastain. Their room was there. It's early. It's a race where that car would have probably been able to do something. And the way that Max Verstappen's car was acting, there's a possibility he could have gained on Max Verstappen there. He wasn't thinking about points there. He was just thinking about defending, and he cost himself there. There's going to be plenty of Red Bull fans or plenty of people who say that George ran into him intentionally. George Russell isn't that kind of guy. So and neither is the other driver that drives a Mercedes. But you don't ask segments of that population what they think. But Leclerc gets the lead, has to pass Verstappen multiple times over, and then his car almost fails. At the same time, we talked about how Sir Carlos Sainz's car fails while he was about to pass Max Verstappen for second, which was horrendous, and the response by the safety crew was not very good. So the amount of destruction that took place is probably going to cost Carlos Sainz later in the season. In all of this, Charles Leclerc gets the victory in the Austrian Grand Prix, his first win since Melbourne early April. So it's been nearly 3 months, or it's been 3 months since his last win, and it's been 2 months since his last podium, as you said, in Miami. So long dry spell for Charles Leclerc, but he gets through, gets the win by 1.53 seconds over Verstappen. Man, Lewis Hamilton was in a different zip code, nearly 59 seconds behind, or 41 seconds behind in third. George Russell fourth, and Esteban Ocon, the last car on the lead lap, in fifth. Mick Schumacher was the driver of the day, gets his best career finish in sixth. Lando Norris seventh, Kevin Magnussen eighth, Daniel Ricciardo ninth, and Fernando Alonso 10th. So Alpine, Haas, and McLaren all get double points finishes along with Mercedes, while the Ferrari and Red Bull teams only have one car finish here yesterday. So, Josh, let's get your thoughts here. A lot to dive into in regards to what took place this past weekend at Austria in the Austrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, with the sprint race starting out with that, I think the Max Verstappen won the pole and won the sprint race, but Leclerc had a chance to take the win in the sprint race, and he definitely had the pace to do it. But for whatever reason, I guess Ferrari didn't allow him to make the charge to take the win in the sprint race. So right there, you kind of saw the pace from Verstappen and from Leclerc as well. So there's that, and then of course the beginning of the race, concerning Leclerc and Verstappen. I mean, they were able to stay relatively close for the most part, but with Verstappen, he didn't have the good tire wear. It looked like the front end wasn't holding up too well after about 10 laps or so, and started losing the front end, and that allowed Charles Leclerc to go in and take the lead eventually and basically take control of the race. And that really opened up the strategy for Ferrari, because they didn't really have to worry about going on a one-strap strategy or trying to defer on their strategy in order to beat Red Bull. They just had to basically make sure they could outrun for Red Bull, and they were able to do that. So they didn't have to worry about anything else. They had enough pace where it's just go and run as many fast laps as you can and win the race, and that's exactly what they did. Of course, they had some issues at the end. The throttle for Charles Leclerc, I guess there's issues of having 20 to 30% throttle in the middle of the corner while you're braking, which is definitely tough because it makes decelerating hard, and you're not able to hit your apex the way you want it to, and that sort of thing. And definitely maybe put a little bit of extra wear onto the tires as well. So there was some issues there. But of course, Red Bull, I mean, they had some pace like after on new tires, but after that, they just didn't have quite the speed that the Ferraris did, and they weren't able to keep up with them like that, especially for Verstappen there. So yeah, that's basically how that race went. I mean, I don't think that's how Ferrari or Red Bull probably going into this weekend foresaw it. I mean, of course, home track for Red Bull Racing and everything, and of course, they have all their fans there, the orange fans and whatnot. So they want to see their team win, and Verstappen or Sergio Perez, and didn't happen this weekend. And I mean, Verstappen able to get a podium in second place, but you expect a little bit different than that, the home racetrack for the team. So I don't know. I guess this weekend Christian Horner didn't find the lucky toilet that he usually finds at these circuits as of late. So probably didn't work out for him. But that's at least we could see a different team win this week for sure in Ferrari and welcome change onto that. So on that term, that's a good thing. And then of course Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, they both crashed in qualifying originally, and that was pretty dramatic. That's the other dramatic part of the weekend for the top three teams. So, I think with Lewis and George Russell, I think after their after they both had incidents on Friday, that's not really a good start to the weekend, and makes you think that things aren't going to go well that weekend. But eventually they did, and he's able to get out a podium finish. So a little bit of consistency there for Lewis Hamilton, and he's able to continue to slowly charge towards the front of the standings. Obviously it's going to take a while and it's going to take a lot to be able to finish in the top three, but eventually keep putting podiums, by the end of the year. Maybe he'll get to third, possibly even second, if things, if one of the teams like, Verstappen is able to run away with it and the fight for the championship is left for second and on back, then maybe Lewis is able to get near that by the end of the year, unless Mercedes goes on a tear and starts winning races. So we'll see what happens there. But from that end, I mean, I thought it was not a too dramatic Grand Prix itself, but you saw the strategies, you saw the pace difference between Red Bull and Ferrari, and that's interesting enough for me to be able to kind of follow and be intrigued by the racing there. So, I thought it was a solid race overall for Austria, which I don't feel like normally we don't think of this track as a very exciting race to watch. It's kind of a more of one of the pace setting races where whoever takes the lead and ends up leading the majority of the race. But this one there was some changes in between the leaders and Ferrari and Red Bull there. And then I think one other thing you have to mention with this is of course the incident with George Russell, Sergio Perez, and first lap. And I mean, I think it's just a situation of cutting the corner too close. Like we see this in other series. The driver on the outside takes a different angle into the corner and ends up cutting off the driver he's beside to or right in front of, and spins out. So basically, yeah, it ruined the race for Sergio Perez. Don't think it's anyone's fault really. I think just a racing incident there, and George Russell continues on, and they gave him a 5-second penalty, and which he ended up taking on the pit stop. So yeah, that was unfortunate for them, but they were able to recover from that and finish in fourth. So another solid finish for George Russell here in this season. So a lot of things happened in this race, but I think at the end of the day, this was definitely a very solid Grand Prix to watch.
Yeah, plenty of stuff that went on during the weekend. I mean, you can give or take in regards to the George Russell, Sergio Perez thing when it comes to Sergio Perez's point standing situation. He lost out big because Leclerc was able to overtake him in the World Championship. Prior to this weekend, Sergio Perez was ahead of him. Right now, it's 40 points separating second through fifth. And then you add another 15 points to that. So 55 points separate the second through sixth in the World Championship right now, while Max Verstappen has a 37-point lead on Charles Leclerc. Verstappen has 8 podiums, and 6 of them are wins. Charles Leclerc has 5 podiums, 3 of them are wins. Leclerc has 6 poles to Max Verstappen's 3 so far. The average finish is about a position difference between Max ahead of Charles, and it's 0.8 on the average start, 0.9 on the average finish. So it basically says those are the 2 best drivers right now this season in Formula One. the second best, or the average finish, the two people that split the Verstappen Leclerc duo is the Mercedes duo. But they're the clear third best qualifying team, but they're right in the mix in regards to finishes. Only Russell is, because of the first lap incident at the British Grand Prix, they'd have a perfect finishing record. So in that sense, they're in a good place. 7 podium finishes amongst the two Mercedes drivers. And so that's something to see, as Josh mentioned, in regards to Mercedes and what they develop as the season goes on. 2 weeks' time, they'll be at Paul Ricard, and they'll be running at Hungary, which is one of Lewis's best racetracks. He's won so many times there. His first race win for Mercedes was at Hungary, and pole for Mercedes was at Hungary in 2013. The lack of straight line speed issues that Mercedes seem to have, and the aero, whatever, in regards to that too, won't be as much of a problem as it may be at Ricard. But that's something we will see. We discussed this also. I made a hit on the Grid Talk podcast, so check out Formula One Grid Talk or on YouTube and all different social media. F1 Chronicle. We went over this race in great detail. Also did a preview hit for the last weekend's race, or yesterday's race at Austria as well. So plenty of great people over there. Want to go and listen to that. We've had George, we've had Tom, who hosted yesterday, actually, the Monkey See podcast, and then got ratioed on social media in regards to safety from Scott McLaughlin, of all people. So that was something. But and other IndyCar diehards. So there is that. Went through the points there. I think the last thing we should go into, Alpine and McLaren right now are tied in Constructors Championship points. Norris, of course, is the highest placed overall in driver points. He has 64. But Ocon is in 8th. Alonso's in 10th. And, of course, Ricciardo has struggled all year. He's in 12th. So they're tied in Constructors' standings points there, Josh. And it's something where you look at the productivity of Daniel Ricciardo at a time where Colton Herta is going to be testing at Portimao this week for McLaren. What is it? Pato O'Ward has been quoted as saying he hasn't heard anything from his owner, Zach Brown, in regards to testing, and he's focused on IndyCar at the moment. But it sounds like McLaren is looking at their options for who is going to replace Daniel Ricciardo. So you would think that a performance like yesterday, where Ricciardo came from 11th, finished 9th, is a positive, but is it enough eventually for them to be able to take that step above Alpine, who seemingly has shown for more or less they're the 4th or 5th best car on the grid for a lot of the season. They're more consistent seemingly than a lot of the other teams, like Alfa Romeo, perhaps. And I think that's the other one that would be there, or Haas. So thoughts on that right now in regards to, we have a couple weeks' time getting into the next couple of races before the summer break. That battle for the Constructors, I think, is going to be one that's going to go all the way to the wire because of how tight it really is. Alfa Romeo is way back, 30 points behind, and then they have a gap on their other Ferrari teammate in Haas. Haas, AlphaTauri, and Aston Martin are all kind of in their own race together. So, talk about McLaren, Alpine, and anything else you took away from the race on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think, with McLaren and Alpine. I think first off with McLaren in regards to Daniel Ricciardo, in the sprint race on Friday, it seemed like Ricciardo had a faster car than he was faster than Lando Norris, and like he asked if it was okay to pass from the radio to the team, and they said basically they said stand by, like we'll let us check or something. I don't have the exact quote. I saw it on F1 Reddit over the weekend, and basically they gave him a non-answer and kind of left him wondering uh, about that and behind the wheel. And um, then on Sunday, I think he was initially faster than Lando Norris, and then I think he fell back to like 14th place or 15th place during the event. I think due to pit stops or otherwise, and then was able to get up to ninth place, finishing the points, albeit a lap down there. So, yeah, and then you mentioned the testing with Colton Herta this week at Portimao. I mean, it really it seems like they aren't really handling the situation well as a team. I think Daniel Ricciardo is trying to prove himself, but not really giving him the opportunity. Kind of maybe on the side of sabotage. I don't know. Not going to accuse anything, but that's what it looks like. Kind of, and then you have Lando on the other side, who's clearly their number one guy. So it's an interesting team dynamic, and does show the reason why this is relevant. It does show the team's, I guess, preparation, their level of competency, and that could show up later in the season when points will be on the line and give themselves a sign of weakness, trying to defend their position against Alpine or other teams that they may come into battle with across the points team, the Constructor Points Championship. So that's something to consider as we go later on, not just solely the focus on Daniel Ricciardo's future in the sport and on the team, but just the way that they're going about the situation and everything. So something to consider there. And then I think for Alpine, clearly they've found something with Esteban Ocon this weekend. They ran pretty well. They had good pace. They're running up there, especially at the beginning of the race with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. They're kind of in that group with I think it was Ocon, Hamilton, George Russell. Not Russell, but yeah, I think Mick Schumacher was in this group as well. Kevin Magnussen. They were all kind of racing together within a couple of car lengths, couple tenths of each other. That was really good piece of racing there, but they're starting to have some pace with Esteban, and I think Fernando is also in that same category as well. Just finished a lap down lower than and lower on the grid than Esteban, but clearly they've found something in some of these courses that we've the series has gone to so far this year, and I think they probably do have an edge over McLaren. They just have to make sure that both Fernando and Esteban are able to finish on the lead lap and maximize their point strategy. We've seen them in the past, like at Canada. They had the divergence in strategy, and that kind of cost themselves points at the end. Unlike some of the other teams, they didn't maximize their points because they went on alternate pit strategy and didn't work out. So I think if they continue to have good pace and they just execute on the strategy, I think they'll probably end up being better than McLaren in the end there. So we'll see what happens, but I lean towards Alpine in this situation specifically. So I think, yeah, and then also talk about Mick Schumacher, second race in a row, finishing in the points, finishing in sixth place. Teammate Kevin Magnussen finishing eighth. So Haas F1, finally figuring it out on the weekend. They both cars managed to finish in the points. It's the first time in a long time that we've ever seen that in this, since they've been in F1. So it's finally a good result for both of those cars and that team as a whole. Something to actually have on a positive note there. So I think for me, this is a pretty interesting weekend for F1, and definitely a lot of things that happened that we didn't expect in this race.
Yeah, I mean the Haas pace is something that's good to see. Their one upgrade it sounds like they're going to make this year is coming at Paul Ricard. So if it does work in a positive way, maybe they can go and compete against Alfa Romeo for sixth in the Constructors Championship and separate themselves from those bottom three, which is Aston, or bottom four. It looks like, like Aston Martin, AlphaTauri. Why am I blanking? Just give me a second here. Yeah, Aston Martin, AlphaTauri, Williams, and Aston Martin, AlphaTauri, and Williams. Yeah, there you go. That would, because AlphaTauri is not doing well this year at all. They're right now, Haas is up by 7 points on them. Pierre Gasly, it looks like a step back, and it may not be about him, really. I think the car is not good. They've done a terrible job this year. Yuki Tsunoda is driving over his head, and I don't really know why he's driving over his head. It's not like he's really going to get replaced. I have a hard time seeing anyone coming in from the Red Bull Junior program. They're touted. Their junior program. There's nobody in Formula 2 or Formula 3 that looks ready or looks capable, any more capable than frickin' Yuki Tsunoda, who's probably rushed up anyway. Personally, I wouldn't mind Jack Crawford being in that car, or Jan Daruvula, because of my personal, national biases, but they're powered by a Honda power plant, and they have, no matter what the hell they call it, and they have a Jap driver in there. And he's a nice kid. He looks like he's about 14 years old. He drives like Takuma Sato. So, they're not really going to do anything about it. It's like you're either going to have Japanese drivers that are slower than death, like King Hiro, or you're going to have Takuma Sato. Problem is, for Takuma Sato, he figured out like racecraft like when he was like 40. Or whatever the hell, 38 or 40, whatever. They're not going to give Yuki Tsunoda that much time, but I don't think he's going to get replaced. But he drives through his own teammate, drives through other people. Gasly drove through Sebastian Vettel. So for Haas, I think they're looking good. Mick has a ton of confidence. Alfa Romeo probably gave away a point or two, possibly, this weekend, but I would think that Paul Ricard would fit them better. Hungary is a great track for Valtteri Bottas. It's crazy, since Valtteri Bottas is probably one of two best tracks that he has, other than Mother Russia on the calendar, is Austria. He's done great there. He's qualified on pole there. He's qualified great there when he was at Williams too, prior to getting a Mercedes. So, all that being said, we'll definitely get into what we're thinking next week for Paul Ricard on the next episode 124 of the Rip Strip Podcast, on all things Formula One that are going on. So yeah, Josh, William Clyde Elliott II gets his league leading third win of the season at the Quaker State 400 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, joining his legendary father, William Clyde Elliott the first, otherwise known as Awesome Bill Elliott, Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, as a winner from the state of Georgia at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Great weekend for Georgia drivers, or at least people initially from Georgia, since I think they relocated to Denver, Colorado for a good part of his life. But Clyde gets the win. Jeffy was there to celebrate. Jeffy did the interview with Kyle and Mr. the King, talking about the last race of Mr. the King's career and Jeffy's first race. Oh, interesting weekend there. That was the old 24 car. So Clyde gets maximum points, wins both stages, wins the race. Great points day for him. Continues to add to his overall points lead. First, he's got 3 wins, so he's obviously the runaway points leader. He's got a 47 point lead overall in the standings over Ryan Blaney, and 50 on Ross Chastain, who is second in points in regards to the playoff standings, but we'll get into him in a minute. Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, top to Austin Cindric, the Daytona 500 champion, gets a third place finish. Eric Jones, another great super speedway run for him, finishes fourth after starting 25th. Ryan Blaney, fifth. Daniel Suarez, sixth. Justin Haley, seventh. Eric Almirola, eighth. Cole Custer, ninth. Harrison Burton, I think that's his first top 10 of his Cup Series career. So congratulations to Harrison, driving the Ecosia Freightliner Ford for the Wood brothers. Martin Truex just outside of the top 10, got into it with Ross Harvick 12th at one of what used to be one of his best racetracks. Kyle Larson was up front, got involved in one, I think, in that Truex wreck. Finished 13th. Bubba Wallace got wrecked by Garrett Smithley because Garrett Smithley sucks. Finished 14th. McDowell was in that one of them wrecks. Briscoe had a nondescript weekend, finished 16th. Todd Gilliland had a car, it looked like at times yesterday, along with Brad Keselowski, but wrecks happened to them as well. Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch was involved with the other Kyle, but Corey LaJoie. So let's take it from here, Josh. Corey LaJoie, probably the best chance he's ever had to win a Cup Series race. The best car he's probably had in a NASCAR Major 3 event ever. I remember him winning ARCA at Pocono and covering that race. What is it, about 8-9 years ago, something like that. And he was an up-and-comer at that point. He was kind of a little bit behind some of these other guys like Clyde and whoever. But, yesterday was Spire's, greatest moment. It almost was. And it almost flipped the whole entire playoff grid on its lid. But in the end, the chosen one, the most popular driver, the one all the inbreds love, the trinket salesman himself with the personality of cardboard, William Clyde Elliott II, gets the win. He had juked Corey LaJoie, who tried to make a run on the outside, and Corey LaJoie hit the fence to defend. He got his fan base got butthurt when Kyle Larson did a similar thing to him at California Speedway. So, whatever. I guess what's fair in love and war, but when it's Clyde, it's okay. If somebody does it to him, it's bad. It's kind of like what Denny Hamlin thinks about when anybody races him tough, but he gets butthurt about it. But then him and Ross Chastain have a little bit of history. And I mean, I guess if you're getting into it with Joe Gibbs Racing drivers, it's par for the course because they all whine. I think it's a byproduct of being at Joe Gibbs Racing. You have to be an ass. You have to be a butthurt asshole. And I say that as a Tony Stewart fan.
Yeah, but that was before Toyota. They
the
all started getting
Toyota
like that
thing,
after Toyota.
yeah, it's even worse. People always accuse Tony of that, but it's like, you know what? It's become worse, but it's a Toyota thing. But I get you on that. So let's talk about Clyde getting that third win, essentially putting himself in a great position to win the regular season points championship. And it goes towards that whole narrative after last year when Kyle Larson dominated and destroyed, won 10 races, won the championship. People were talking about, there's this little thing, who's the lead dog at Hendrick Motorsports? Well, Clyde is like, I was the champion the year before, and I went and won the last 2 races that season. I'm driving the 24 car. The owner is really Jeff Gordon. I'm the most popular driver. I'm the merch guy. I'm all this, whatever. I'm trying to take this thing over. And if when you talk about a car that probably suits Clyde, this car and the way it is, talk about the road courses and what this suits William Clyde Elliott. He's won at Dover for the first win. The second win is I'm blanking on where he won his second race, but he had a chance at Richmond too this year. But of course, he wins here at Atlanta, wins at home, and I mean that's a big win in that spot. I think it was
Won at
Kansas, right?
Nashville a couple weeks ago.
Or Nashville. There you go. Yeah, Nashville a couple weeks ago. My fault. So good. Thank you for that. So yeah. So Nashville concrete, 1 1/3 mile track. You win at the mile concrete on at Dover, high banked, and then you win super speedway type race at a 1.5 mile track at Atlanta. Was finished second at Road America, which is everyone talks about him as road course king. Clyde's on a championship trajectory at the moment, and he's giving himself a cushion in points. But Corey LaJoie made him sweat for that one, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Corey LaJoie made him sweat, and Chase Elliott was able to take the lead with like 2 laps to go on the outside against Corey LaJoie. There was really no stopping the run. Corey couldn't really do anything to stop it, and last lap Corey's got a run on the outside, push from Ross Chastain, and he was able to get to the outside, but then Chase went up and blocked him there. So it's a interesting situation there for Spire, because people forget that they had actually already won in Daytona a few years ago, the rain delayed race in Daytona, which ended up being the last 4th of July race in Daytona. So I mean, you have that happening, and then this on Sunday, it's as close as a real victory that they've ever been to. So one end, it's like shows just how close, and then also just how far away it can be. It's literally go back to the wide world of sports, the agony of, or the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat all wrapped up into one. So you have that there. And I think for Corey LaJoie, I feel like the move should have been to fake to the outside and then go to the bottom, because you carry the momentum down into the corner, down into the banking rather than onto it. Because if you have the run on the you fake to the inside and then go back to the outside, you have to keep the momentum to go to the outside, and you have to have a lot more than what he had to go up against Chase Elliott in the middle of turn 1 and 2, and he got blocked like that. So I feel like the way the speed was going into the corner, if you kind of look at the tape, if you just fake to the outside and go dive down to the middle, or to the low side bottom of the track in turn 1, probably have a little bit more speed right there to do that and get to his door for Chase Elliott, get to the quarter panel, or they both touch, crash in turn 1 and take out the field, kind of thing. So that's how I felt about that finish. I think that's the only thing you would have done differently. It's just the opposite of what he did there. So yeah, I mean, Corey LaJoie made him work for it, of course, the last lap, and then Chase Elliott goes out and wins the race, and the siren, whatever that is, I've never heard it pronounced like that. I had to Google
Yeah, they've
that.
been talking about
like
that for the
word.
last few years. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've been talking about it for the last few years, ever since
Well, no, I know
Chase
that.
came along and is, oh, it's a siren. I'm like, what the fuck is
Yeah,
that? I hear
well,
you on
yeah,
that.
I mean, exactly. Like, well, I mean, today's the first time I've ever heard it pronounced the siren, or not today, Sunday, and I feel like, I mean, yeah, of course, I've known about it. Everybody's known about it for years, the Dawsonville pool room thing, but I've never heard the word pronounced siren. I've just heard siren. Like, the hell is that? But and they really put an emphasis on making that pronunciation. NBC did, and it's like, saw some comment on the internet, like Fox missed all the details, and then NBC hyper focuses on one detail, and that's just one example of that right there. But I mean, yeah, that was annoying. But Chase Elliott goes out and wins, gets his third victory of the year, and shows that yeah, he's the points leader. He's the guy right now. And at the beginning or like a couple weeks ago, before the Nashville victory, wouldn't have really thought of Chase Elliott as actually a strong championship contender. Just more of a result of the volatility that we've seen in this series. So far this year, it just happened to be the best on or not the best, but just the one who just managed to happen to be on top of the championship standings, and that would probably change as we go on and things continue to go throughout the season with points and different swings between drivers and stuff throughout all these races and that things that we've saw at the beginning of the year. But it seems like now Chase Elliott is figured something out. The 9 team, they figured something out with this new car last couple of weeks, of course. Whatever reason, after the rain in Nashville, the car came alive and they won there. And then last week, they had the race in the bag until Tyler Reddick came along and basically stole, took the victory from them. And then this race where they just made the right. They had a good car and they made the right move at the end to win the race. So Chase was able to do that. So credit to the 9 team there. But I think the other takeaway from this race, of course, is Ross Chastain and the stuff that went on. I mean, I'll let you talk about it in a minute, but he
Yeah.
got into it with Martin Truex. Started the first big wreck, just pushed too hard on the rear bumper. Truex spun him out and then took out Austin Dillon, and then later on, I guess he chased it up the hill off of turn 4, got into the left rear quarter panel. Denny Hamlin spun out Denny there, and then Denny says he's had enough and everything, and he's reached his breaking point or whatever with Ross Chastain. And I mean, I personally don't think Ross Chastain's doing anything wrong. I think he should keep doing what he's doing and just not wreck people. That's all you gotta do. Just don't wreck people, and you're good. And just race hard. You say Ernie Irvan, but I mean to me, it's just like Brad Keselowski in 2009, 2010, in the Nationwide Series. It was running people too hard. I mean, even all the way up to his first Cup championship. Remember, Tony Stewart said he had a death wish at Texas for racing too hard. And then, all the other people lost their minds. Cousin Carl put him in the fence in Atlanta. Jeff Gordon put Clint Boyer in the fence. And that was, Keselowski's
No,
big rant.
Texas. Yeah, Texas in 14 was one where
Yeah.
he went and lost his mind on Brad.
Yeah, that one
When
too.
when Brad's move was justified.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm talking about or I say Jeff and Clint Boyer because that was also the press conference where Brad Keselowski said he was tired of all the bullshit people were throwing at him, for having a death wish racing when you have champions like Jeff Gordon going out and losing it and physically destroying the race cars of other teams and stuff like that. Carl Edwards, who never won a Cup championship, went and flipped Keselowski in the air and then hooked him in the right rear on the straightaway at Gateway later in the year. I watched those videos recently. That's also why I kind of bring that up. But Denny's not capable of doing any of those things, and he wants to be Michael Jordan so badly. Michael. I learned most of his career watching The Last Dance, but Michael was able to get in people's heads, and he knew when to turn it on and how to, defeat other players on other teams, while he's playing on the Bulls. And yeah, Danny wants to be like that, but he'll never be like that. So he doesn't have the capabilities. He's just a choker. So he's a cool guy or whatever. Like gets all the clout and stuff, but end of the day, he's just not going to be able to deliver on the message, and he's going to try to wreck Ross Chastain or whatever, or deliver something, but probably won't follow through. And go back to 2008 when he was going in, 2009 with Brad Keselowski, and he was like so sure of Brad Keselowski never making it into the Cup Series, and Brad Keselowski made it into the Cup Series and won a championship. And I think
in his
Denny,
third
yeah.
year, no less.
Yeah, exactly. And Denny spun him out at Homestead off of turn 4, 2009. But other than that, Denny's it's all just been talk and everything. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's what this rivalry, I guess, reminds me of is Denny versus Brad Keselowski, and back 10 years ago and 12 years ago, back in those days. But I think Ross Chastain, just don't wreck people and just keep racing people hard. In my mind, no such thing as racing people too hard. So especially with the way that cup is now. I mean, you may as well like race as hard as you can, and just don't wreck people.
Yeah, I mean, I give you credit on that. It's going for honest to God, like that's one of the hottest takes we've had out of you here on this show. So, and you're very committed to that. So I'm glad. Um, Personally, I mean, to me, I'm an Ernie Irvan guy. So my two favorite drivers when I first started in this sport were Davey and Ernie. And I was a young kid, so all you assholes want to say, "How can you like a Ford and a Chevy driver?" I'm like, I just liked how they looked. The cars looked. It just also helped that they were both good cars and they both ran up front a lot. Um, as I've gone along in my fandom and learned more about both of them, and then of course the unfortunate tragedy that took place that saw Davey not win the championship in '92 and then die in the helicopter crash months later, and Ernie taking his ride because Ford wanted him and Robert Yates wanted him, and then all that happened to him and his life and everything that's gone on. Ernie was rough around the edges. He had driven for DK Ulrich in Cup for a couple of years. They ran out of money. Prior to that, I think Dale Earnhardt funded him to run with Mark Reno for about 4 races. He crashed a couple times, fell out once, whatever. He ran for Junie Donlevy, and then Phil Parsons got let go, which came up on the DJD recently. Um, and Ernie took over the Morgan McClure 4 car. And that's when the Morgan McClure 4 car became a thing. They were in the sport for years. But then Ernie drove that car in the Kodak Films Oldsmobile back in the day. And they became a thing. Now, of course, he also destroyed a lot of people and cars and things. Basically ended Neil Bonnet's career. Had to get to the point where he had to apologize to everybody in front of the drivers' meeting after triggering multiple wrecks. In this day and age, people talk on social media, people sit in front of the TV interviews and whatever. Josh is right about Denny Hamlin. He's all talk and no, you know, he's the opposite of a finisher. It's hilarious that he's with Michael Jordan as a partner because he's the opposite of Michael Jordan in so many ways. Unless it's a pile of powder in front of him. But the fact of the matter is, if Denny wants to run him over, the fact is he needs to figure out a way to make it look good. Because if he doesn't make it look good, he's going to get a penalty. You know, and the way that social media is and all that, like the fact of the matter is, he should firewall if he's so incensed by Ross Chastain. He has to firewall Ross Chastain at Daytona, just for an example.
I mean,
He
that's
needs to
pretty much where you're gonna have to
firewall.
do it.
Yeah, he has to firewall him at Pocono going into turn 1 as an example. You know, like you need to firewall and destroy their equipment. Like that's the only way that it really hurts the team. Because Ross Chastain is always gonna be aggressive. God bless him. He came from driving start and park, third rate equipment. Denny Hamlin has never had bad equipment his whole career. Most of these sons of bitches have never had bad equipment their whole career. Ross Chastain drove absolute dog crap for the majority of his career in all 3 series. It took getting into a freaking Ganassi car in Xfinity, and he went and did work. Then he jumps in that Nice truck, and all of a sudden they skyrocket. He drove for Brad, but nobody really remembers that. Everybody talks about all these, like you think about all these guys that won their first race this year and all these people connected. We're going to talk about another one. They all drove for Brad Keselowski. So the guy has horse teeth and he's kind of a moron in terms of some of his takes politically, but he knew how to get talent. Ross wasn't winning in that equipment. Winning. And he wasn't winning in that equipment, but he was up front doing something. But he didn't know what to do with it back, 5, 6, however many years ago it was, 7 years. He didn't know what to do with that. Now he's in that spot and he's running hard. It is like Ernie. And you know what? Ernie figured it out. And Ernie also was a championship contender. He won the Daytona 500, finished top 5 in points in 1991. 92 was a rough year. They had a lot of rougher year because it was really a year for Fords. 93, they had a lot of mechanical issues, which was one of the reasons why he went to Robert Yates Racing in the 28 car to be the replacement. And from that point, when he took over that 28 car in September of 93 till his the accident that almost killed him, he was the best driver in the sport, bar none. He was going to win the 1994 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. No matter what Earnhardt fans want to take, and we don't have that many listeners, so I can go and make that hot take. He was going to win the 94 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. He was better than Dale Earnhardt that year. Bullshit happened to him so many races. He won 3 races, should have won like 8. Should have won the Brickyard, Watkins Glen. I can list races that Ernie should have won that year. Daytona, the 500, the 2 races Jimmy Spencer won with the cheated up engine. The 2 wins that Jimmy Spencer has, that why he has an existence in the world, they did with a cheated up car in the month of July of 94 because Junior Johnson knew he was going out of sport. That would be like 6-7 wins. He'd had fucking Jeffy and a terrible porn stash and ridiculous mullet. Ernie winning the first Brickyard 400, it would be historic. But Ross Chastain's like that. And he has an owner that supports him, and Justin Marks, who almost stayed it off of turn 4 in the truck race in Mid-Ohio because his brakes failed. But it's a lot of talk. And if NASCAR really wants to handle this, they need to get them in the room. They need to get whoever it is, Ben Kennedy, Jim France, whatever, and have them sit there and have a discussion and tell them you're not as big as the sport itself. Like the whole Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Bodine meeting with Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress. If Denny Hamlin wants to punch him in the face, which he probably won't, go and do it. Have them. It's really about Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain. It's not Clyde's got no personality. He doesn't really have much of a pulse. Yeah, Martin Truex is about to leave the sport anyway. He's kind of an angry guy, whatever, so he goes out and jerks himself off at the lake. Like all these other people I want to be mad about Ross Chastain. Don't tell Daniel and his amigos about that. That would be a bad thing. Because they're going to go and bring... I'm not going to go there. I had a bad, really racist, fucked up thing I was going to say, but I'm not because the fact is I'm not going to go down to the LCD level, which is what all the fan bases of people who don't like Ross Chastain are doing. And what Max Verstappen
He's got
fans
Pitbull.
do.
He can let Pitbull do the talking.
Hey, Guy Ocho, you're going to go and mess with Pitbull? Come on, man. Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide. You're going to mess with those white spandex pants and driving gloves? No, you're not. Get the fuck out of the way, Denny Hamlin. Get out of the way from Mr. 305. That's the thing. Let that watermelon slam on your head like Gallagher slammed it with a helmet. Go and eat that thing, bitch. Go back to Chesterfield, you horse-faced jackass. Fucking Baba Booey Jr. you are. Yeah, so, getting into the points. Yeah, I mentioned the points already briefly. Cup Series going to New Hampshire this weekend has a, what is it, 47-point lead on Ryan Blaney. First to 3 wins this year. So there's 13 drivers with a win. If somebody can go and win at New Hampshire that hasn't won, like Martin Truex, one of his 86 home tracks, Christopher Bell, he's known for doing good on flat tracks. Harvick's won there. The defending race champions, Eric Almirola. If any of those guys can win, there'd be 14 winners. Something we'll talk about here in a little bit. Austin Hill gets a win in the Xfinity Series in the Alsco Uniforms 250. The point standings, we'll get the results first. Austin Hill over Josh Berry, Ryan Truex in the 18 car, finishes third. Tyler Reddick in the 48, finishes fourth. Daniel Hemrick had a chance, finished fifth. Noah Gragson sixth. Justin Allgaier 7th, Landon Castle 8th, Riley Herbst 9th, AJ Allmendinger rounds out the top 10. Really won a whole lot. You see 6, 7, 8, 9 leaders. Ty Gibbs got involved in a wreck. I'm trying to see here which one that shows the 54. It says accident for him, but doesn't show number 1, number 20, number 19, number 7. I don't see the incident that says that he got an accident. Probably hit the fence. Brandon Brown actually ran really well this weekend as well, but didn't have anything to show for it after getting his car destroyed by Gragson at Road America the previous week. Austin Hill wins a stage, wins the race at home. So Atlanta, another guy who ran the quarter-mile track in the infield in his early days, gets a victory at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The point standings after this win right now, Allmendinger has a 29-point lead overall on Ty Gibbs, 30 points on Justin Allgaier. So it's 3-horse race at the moment for the overall points championship. Playoff points standings, see Ty Gibbs has 4 wins, so he would have the I think it would be close right now to be like 4 points if Allmendinger wins the regular season for the points lead going into the playoffs. Ty Gibbs has 23 playoff points. He has an 7-point lead on Noah Gragson, and 8 on Allgaier and Berry. All 5 of the top 6 now with Austin Hill have at least 2 wins this season. Ty Gibbs, of course, has 4. And then Brandon Jones has 1 win this year. So getting into, there's 12 cars that make it. It's an 80-point gap between 12th and 13th. It's not really that dramatic. I have a hard time believing anybody really, Sheldon Creed, which is something we'll talk about here in a minute. Brandon Brown with Daytona coming up. And some of these guys, all the Hour Motorsports drivers, they're all outside of the playoff right now. Really, that battle and then the road courses that are coming up might help with Myatt Snyder and Jeremy Clemens. But to be honest, I think the playoff standings as we see them, I think the 12 drivers that are in the playoffs right now are going to make the playoffs. Uh, the Xfinity race there on Saturday was typical. People wait too long, then they go and try to go for it, and then they all, get into a circle jerk. That was essentially what happened, and Austin Hill gets a second win on a super speedway type race, Josh, on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty nondescript, race. Obviously, there's a lot that happened. There was lead changes, and then you had at some points you had the front of the field, the first 4 or 5 cars get into their own pack, and they are seconds ahead of everyone else in the field. And then there was some moments there where they ran into some lap traffic, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think there was a moment where AJ Allmendinger fell 2 laps down and was trying to get his lap back, and they kept him 2 laps down, but then eventually got his laps back and finished in 10th, so bit of a recovery there. Uh, but Austin Hill was seemingly figured out super speedway racing when it comes to this series, and he's figured out how to stay up front, run up front. Um, so he was up there for most of the race, and then Josh Berry had a couple of opportunities to go for the win, take the lead, but I feel like Josh Berry is not really a super speedway racer per se. Doesn't really have, I wouldn't say he has the prowess to do it, but he just, that's not his style of racing. He's obviously more of a short track racer, and someone who needs throttle control to be able to get it done on the track. And that's where he's seen him most excel. And this type of racing isn't his flavors. So um, while he finished second, it's going to be hard to envision him trying to go for a win and being able to follow through on winning at a super speedway or a mini super speedway like this racetrack at Atlanta. So uh, overall, I mean, for the team, it was good and organization, good event, good race. Justin Allgaier, Noah Gragson both finishing the top 10. And then their other car, Sam Mayer, uh, was also in a crash. So 3 out of 4 cars, solid weekend for Junior Motorsports. And then I think other teams like Ryan Truex, limited run in the 18, getting a top 3 finish, good result for him. Don't know when he'll be back into that car, but being able to finish that high and lead a couple of laps in the race is pretty good, especially when you're still a relatively young guy. I mean, he's 30 now, so not really that young anymore, but being able to have that opportunity and race for a good team like Joe Gibbs Racing, got to make the most of it. And so far he has. So that's a good result for him. Sheldon Creed, you mentioned him, spun out earlier in the race, but managed to mix it up, in the field later on, but then drifted back to 12th at the end of the race. So it shows you really have to maintain your position up front at these tracks at Daytona, Talladega, and now at Atlanta. But I think overall, uh, this race in the Xfinity Series, a little bit different than the Cup Series, but still kind of the same deal. Is just a little bit more handling that's involved in this one, so a little bit different there. But yeah, I mean overall, not really too much happened in this race. They didn't have as many cautions as the Cup race, and the accidents that did happen, there wasn't too big of a crash. The most cautions or incidents they had, there was only 2 cars involved. The last 2 cautions, so nothing that speaks out to you as like, oh, this is horrible or anything. Not like the Cup Series where they basically had 2 big ones in the middle of the race. So from that end, at least, it was a little bit cleaner than the Cup Series race at Atlanta.
Yeah, not a whole lot of action. They probably need to change the whatever the package that they bring to Atlanta Motor Speedway for the Xfinity series to make the racing better, perhaps, at the Atlanta slot car track. Last part of the NASCAR triple header that took place this weekend was at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, which saw Parker Kligerman get his third career Truck Series win. First race for the Truck Series there. Long-time track for the Xfinity Series. Winning, he led 56 of the 67 laps. Won the first stage, lost the second stage on the final lap to Zane Smith, giving Henderson Motorsports their first win in a long time. He wins over Zane Smith. Corey Heim led, I think, the first 3 laps, and then after that, it was literally a 2-horse race. Parker Kligerman and Zane Smith were in a different zip code from everybody else. Carson Hocevar started third, finished third. Stuart Friesen fourth, Christian Eckes fifth, Chandler Smith sixth, Kaz Grala ninth, Derek Kraus eighth, seventh, and Derek Kraus eighth, Colby Howard ninth, and Haley Deegan actually got a top 10. I might be mistaken. That might be her first top 10 of her career in the Truck Series. But a double top 10 for the McAnally crew. Kraus has had a crew chief change again, trying to go and get backdoor into the playoffs. So there is that. Getting through, I mean, Majeski got a stage point, Enfinger got stage points, Tyler Ankrum got stage points, so did Corey Heim before his gearbox went. John Hunter Nemechek had gearbox issues as well, or driveline issues, rear gear or whatever, finished 28th, and then Justin Marks got points in stage 1, but then his brakes failed, and he crashed in turn 4. Another story that came up was Mason Philippi and the G2G Motorsports team and the continuing saga that comes up with Maggot Moron Tim Vines providing vehicles that are prepared to actually show up and race. Doesn't know how to do so because it was stopping during qualifying and then it stopped during the race. And they had to park Mason Philippi after 9 laps at Mid-Ohio. He runs for Brian Hurd Autosport in the TCR class for the Brian Hurd Autosport Hyundai team, and he's pretty good there. But his choice of NASCAR team leaves a lot to be desired. But Parker Kligerman has become a TV guy, does a show on Peacock and on YouTube for NBC Sports. But he is a race car driver, and at one point was a NASCAR prospect. And over the years has shown that he knows what he's doing when you give him the vehicle. And I gotta say, that might have been the best performance we've seen out of Parker Kligerman in his career, or since his heyday with Cunningham Motorsports when he won 9 races in the ARCA series. I think that was about 9 years ago, or maybe more like 13, 14 years ago, some crap like that. Because he was in the Xfinity series back in the early 2010s. And he was a prospect for sure. Won 9 races in the ARCA series, and bring it up. I might as well go and look it up now. It was 2009. Yeah, 2009. He won 9 races out of 21, finishing the top 5 14 times, 18 top 10s out of 21 races, and somehow or another lost that championship to Patrick Sheltra, who only won one race that year, which is pretty scary. He lost that championship to Justin Lofton by 5 points. Yeah, and Justin Lofton now drives off-road trucks in on like whatever, like Baja and all that. But yeah, what a job by what's it called, Parker Kligerman, to go and get that victory at the Mid Ohio Sports Car Course, and beating the likely regular season champion too in the process, in Zane Smith, who in turn kind of showed the pace advantage that he seemingly has over a lot of his title rivals. Kyle Busch Motorsports kind of dick-stepped themselves at Mid-Ohio in a place where, yeah, Chandler Smith started 31st, so he had issues in qualifying. It was a wet qualifying. Had to come from 31st to finish 6th, got no stage points. But the 51 was fast, had gearbox problems. The 4 truck had a chance, started 4th, was up there, had driveline problems. In the end, you look at this championship, Zane Smith's kind of on an island. There's no other Fords that are competitive, really. But he's able to fight Toyota, the top Toyota team in Kyle Busch Motorsports, to a lesser extent even Dorsport, which is really Ben Rhodes and I guess Ty Majeski, and be able to do what he needs to do to stand up and possibly go and get that championship. What were your thoughts on Truck Series event at Mid-Ohio?
Well, I mean, first of all, for Parker Kligerman, I haven't seen him win in a long time, and it's like also, you mentioned his thing racing in the ARCA series back in 2009. It was like, yeah, he was a young kid back then. Somehow he's still here, and it's like, wow, it seems like he's not even 31 years old, but he's still trying to make it in the truck series while being a part-time reporter on NBC for NASCAR there. But also on the iRacing side of things, he's got his eRacer GG community on Discord, and yeah, when he won, Discord was popping off, and everybody was happy for him there. I mean, in that server, and definitely saw a lot of people that were very happy to see him win. And so, a guy like him organizing all the cool sim racing events online, and being able to, I think one of the events I may have been in with him, but being able to be an event, or be in a community like that and see the guy that created the community get that kind of success is always pretty cool to see. So big win for him, and not just like, oh, he took the lead late in the race and was able to hold on for victory. No, he went out and dominated this race and led 56 laps. So he can still get the job done, and he's worked pretty hard over the last couple of years. And he's made, certainly looks like he's made the most of his opportunity racing part-time for the Henderson racing team. So, maybe it leads to more opportunities here in the future for other teams, get him a deal and maybe full-time in truck, or possibly even Xfinity series. So, we'll have to see for him. And then, of course, credit to Zane Smith for racing him very cleanly in that last couple of laps, because could have turned him there, especially in the last 2 corners. Had the opportunity to be able to send it in there and put the bumper and knock him out of the way, but he raced him clean, and didn't do anything excessive, and definitely shows something, good character there, and being able to run hard, but respect the guy in front of you. So that's going to pay off dividends later on as we go on to the championship, and being able to race like that cleanly leads on to bigger and better things. So we'll see there. But yeah, I think this race overall, I mean, not a whole lot happened, but it was a good result for I think a lot of people like this victory. It's a very popular win among the fan base and among the series.
And I'm looking up the racing reference, which is not as good as it used to be, but he won for them at Talladega in 2017, Parker Kligerman. So that's the 2 wins they have. This is the best season they've had in the Truck Series so far by just a little bit, getting that win, of course. 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 8 starts. And I'm sure they're going to keep on going here. So they're going to run more races, probably going to run at least 3 more races because in 21 they ran 11. They're looking to try to run a full season next year. So that's something to look at. Going back in their history, they've won 5 races, and Parker Kligerman's won 2 of them. He's tied with Rick Wilson, who won 2 races in the Busch Series back in 1989. That was when Rick Wilson, I think, was still driving for Morgan McClure and making connections to Morgan McClure here, and Anderson Racing, and Oldsmobile, and Ernie Irvan, and Mr. the King, and all. We got all kinds of connections going on there. You can get into the whole 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon shit with all these kind of things we got going on. But great run by Parker Kligerman getting that win. It assisted the point standings since there's only 1 race to go in the regular season with the way that the Truck Series is. The 16 races make up the regular season, so the race on Saturday was race 15. For all intents and purposes, Zane Smith is going to be the regular season champion, get another 15 playoff points, which will give him a massive edge. He'll be over 20 points. He'll be 24 points ahead as of now, ahead of Ben Rhodes, who has the second most points in the Truck Series on playoff points. I mean, Corey Himes won twice this year, but he's not eligible because he's not a full-time driver. Ryan Preece has won once. And then Parker Kligerman, of course, has won once, but doesn't get any playoff points because he's not a regular. Even though you're declared for, even though you're declared as a regular, you're declared for points in that series. I don't know why they wouldn't give him I don't get how that works. Whatever. Because I guess it's the same thing as if Kyle Busch, who won at Sonoma, and Ross Chastain, William Byron, Todd Gilliland. So yeah, 4 drivers. They're all those guys are Cup guys that have won. So it tells you that the Truck Series ain't so great anymore. 4 Cup guys have won. Then you got 3 guys that aren't running regular races. So that's 7 drivers. That's 7 guys. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If my math is... That doesn't really work because he's 3 and he's 2. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8, and 4, 12. Yeah. It's 12 drivers in the first 15. Yeah, that is true, actually. Yeah, 12 drivers have won so far this year, but only 5 of them are really competing for the championship. So it's kind of wide open in that sense. But to be completely honest, Zane Smith is the dominant figure. And he is going to likely win the regular season championship. Not sure if he'll win the actual championship. Finished second twice in his career. Ty Majeski, Christian Eckes, Carson Hocevar are locked into the playoffs by points. Now, of course, they could win Pocono and solidify their spot, give themselves some extra playoff points there, stage points, the whole bit on that. But the top 8 right now is locked in going into Pocono in next week. 2 spots are open. Grant Enfinger has a 28 point gap on Matt Crafton, who's on the cutoff. Crafton then has on 19 points on Derek Kraus. He has a way bigger gap after that. So essentially, unless somebody goes outside, which we'll get into next week, somebody comes out and wins at Pocono, pulls something out of their ass, a la like Chris Buescher in 2016 when he won his first and now since only Cup win of his career. The playoffs are set. We'll get into that more next week in more detail on the GSP. Get into the GSP roundup here before we get into the previews for IndyCar and the Cup and XFinity at New Hampshire. So Formula 2 raced at Austria this past weekend, of course, and Logan Sargent ends up getting a double. He won the sprint race on Saturday, and it was a pretty good performance there. That was straightforward. He won that race on the track. Now on Sunday, it was a wet-dry race. Richard Vachor gambled on slicks and was right. Logan Sargent went on wets, and it didn't work out. Had to come back. He was in position to finish third in the race. In the end, Richard Vachor won, dominated, and wasn't able to make it back to pit lane. And he didn't have enough fuel, so he got disqualified. Daruvula was handed a 20-second penalty because his team tried to dry the track over by his starting position. Drive-through penalty essentially could not be served during the race. Converted 20-second time penalty means Logan Sargent, who took third, will be promoted to first ahead of Enzo Fittipaldi for Charus and Roberto Merhi, who was filling in for Campos. Based on that, first double of Logan Sargent's career in Formula 2. And with that, his last 3 weekends have been outstanding. He had a very slow start to the season in Formula 2, learning these cars. No points at Saudi Arabia, too, which will, along with Teo Pocher, who's the guy he's battling against. But Logan Sargent right now is second in points. He is 39 points behind Felipe Drogovic, who has scored points in every round this year, or every race weekend. It doesn't mean every round. I'll correct myself on that. Every race weekend. There's still 12 races total, 6 rounds to go. 12 total races, 6 rounds, going all the way to Abu Dhabi. There will be a huge break between the Italian Grand Prix and Abu Dhabi. So busy times here coming up for Formula 2. They're going to be racing at France next week. Then they'll race at Hungary. They'll have the break. Then they'll go to Belgium. The Netherlands at Zandvoort, and then the Italian Grand Prix weekend. So can Logan Sargent climb up the ladder, possibly go and steal this Formula 2 championship away from Felipe Drogovic, and in turn possibly get a Formula 1 seat in the process? Pocher is third in points. Jehan Daruvula is fourth. Enzo Fittipaldi is fifth. But Pocher and Sargent only separated by a point. Daruvula, Enzo Fittipaldi are part of a battle that essentially is from 20 points separate fourth through 10th. They're in that. The results coming from race one, just to give it there. My fault. I thought it was a double. That's my fault. Logan Sargent finished seventh there. Marcus Armstrong, Teo Pocher, Jack Doohan, Drogovic, Vips, Reve Shore, Sargent, Awasa, Enzo Fittipaldi, Dennis Hauger, your top 10. The point scorers are the top 8 in that. So Logan Sargent gets points in that race. Then in race 2, Vayshore, of course, gets DQ'd. So Logan Sargent over Enzo Fittipaldi, Roberto Meri going in, filling in for Campos, Dennis Hauger, Jake Hughes, Ollie Caldwell, Awasa, Vips, Nisani, and Lawson, your top 10. Drogovic just outside of or 3 seconds out of the top 10, trying to go and add to his points lead. In regards to Formula 3 at Austria, we had Juan Manuel Correa had a chance to win at Austria in the first race, but had a broken gearbox, which allowed Jack Crawford to win his first Formula 3 race. So one American has misfortune, another American benefits. Crawford over Caio Collet, Franco Colapinto, Arthur Leclerc, Roman Stanek, your top 5. Kalen Frederick, the American, 6th. Johnny Edgar, Victor Martins, Alexander Smollier, and Isaac Hadjar, your top 10. We'll talk about him in a minute. Kushmaini, 18th. Brad Benavides, Hunter Yaney, 19th and 21st, respectively. Oliver Bierman's Australian or British, whatever. I need to bring up the Formula 3. Yeah, I need to bring up so you can go and get into the nationalities of all these drivers, because there's a lot of changes in the driver lineups at the moment. Johnny Edgar. Yeah. Oh, you have to click on all of them. Roman Stanek and Zane Maloney. I don't even know what country that is. It's Barbados. Oh, okay. Jack Crawford, Oliver Biermans from Britain. Then you have Juan Manuel Correa, Saucy Swiss. Okay. And Kushmaini's Indian. The Charus racing team was running over each other, which was kind of funny. Kalen Fredericks, American. Isaac Hadjar. Then Hunter Yaney is U.S. driver. Then you have, I don't know who any of those guys on Jenser Motorsports are. Zach O'Sullivan's from Britain. Brad Benavides is an American driver. So he's bringing the money for sure, because he ain't that good. Enzo Trulli. So yeah, okay. So yeah, there's still like 4 or 5 Americans in Formula 3. Points going into the next race in Hungary. These Victor Martins up by 2 points over Isaac Hadjar, who won the feature race. Arthur Leclerc is third, so it's a 3-horse race. 6 points between the 3 of them. Roman Stanek 4th, Jack Crawford 5th, Oliver Bierman 6th, Franco Colapinto, Colette, Zach O'Sullivan, Smollier 10th. Kalen Frederick was running up there in the second race, but had issues. Hadjar over Victor Martins, Bierman, third, Arthur Leclerc, fourth, Zane Maloney, fifth, Stanek, Colapinto, Smollier, Alatalo for Genzer Motorsports, Ito Cohen, 10th. Best American drivers, Juan Manuel Correa in 11th. Jack Crawford got taken out there, finished 22nd. Kalen Frederick was 23rd. Kushmini, 25th. So that's the Formula 3 situation going into next week at Hungary. WEC at Monza was a battle of the we saw the Peugeot team go and make their debut in WEC with a 9X8 hypercar, but it was the Alpine team of Andre Negrão, Nicolas Lapierre, Mathieu Vaxivière win by 2.76 seconds over Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, and Ryo Hirakawa, the winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And then the other Toyota, Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, Jose Maria Lopez was 2 laps back in third. Rui Andrade, Ferdinand Habsburg, Norman Nato wins LMP2. Sebastian Bourdais gets on the podium in LMP2, finishing third. Josh Pearson's part of the the team. What team is that he drives for? Freaking United Autosport. Finished fifth in class. Stephen Thomas finished seventh in class, and LMGT Pro, the Corvette of Tommy Milner and Nick Tandy, win over the Ferraris, finishing second and third. And then the Porsches, fourth and fifth. In GTM, the Dempsey Proton car, Christian Reed, Sebastian Priaulx, Harry Tinknell get the victory over Rahel Frey, Michelle Gadding, and Sarah Bovey, the Iron Dames Ferrari team that qualified on pole in class by a lap. And then Porsche to round out the GTM podium there. One Peugeot fell out of the race early. DeResta, Mikkel Jensen, John-Eric Verne. The 708 Glickenhaus hypercar, which finished third overall at Le Mans, fell out of the race early as well. And then the other Peugeot finished basically third from last. Third from last in the running order. They had issues as well. Their next race, of course, is Fuji 2 months from now. So a lot of development coming along with that. Look for Penske to show up with their Porsche LMDH car to get some data there to help with balance of performance going into next year for the coordinating of all the classes there, the 2 prototype classes getting into the new formula, that convergence between prototype classes and the 2 main series, the IMSA series and the WeatherTech, or with IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and then the World Endurance Championship. Supercars were at Townsville this past weekend. Shane Van Gisbergen gets a double. His rival, Anton De Pasquale, gets into him in the second race for Dick Johnson Racing. The top 5, Shane Van Gisbergen, Will Davison, Cam Waters, Andre Amgartner, got by Anton De Pasquale, Brock Feeney, Tim Slade, Chaz Monster, Jack LeBrock were the top 10 race 1. SVG over Anton ADP, Cam Waters, James Courtney, Chaz Monster, Brock Feeney, Will Davison, Tim Slade, Andre Heimgartner, Mark Winterbottom, your top 10 at Townsville. Their next race will be at the end of the month at the Bend Motorsports Park. Shane Van Gisbergen still has a little over 100-point lead on Anton De Pasquale. The Dick Johnson duo of ADP and Will Davison are second and third. Cam Waters fourth. Chaz Mostert fifth. And Brock Feeney is sixth. Reynolds and Heimgartner are in a battle. Only 3 points separate them. Brody Kostecki, Tim Slater only separated by 3 points, rounding out the top 10. Then Courtney and Winterbottom was 12 points just outside of the top 10. They'll have a few weeks' time before they race again at the Bend. DJR is looking for investors for their team, a la like what they had with Roger Penske, which of course netted a lot of great results for them. Scotty McLaughlin going and making a name for himself and putting himself on the map to get him to America and race at in the IndyCar Series. Getting into Extreme E discussion here, the Ganassi team, as I open a beer, wins race 1. Trying to go through the maiden victory. After Rosberg's team receives a penalty after Rosberg's Johan Christofferson crashed into Carlos Sainz Sr. So that's so it tells you what the owner's driving standards are rubbing off on his drivers. The GMC Hummer EV team of Sarah Price and Kyle LeDuc gets a victory over Excite Energy Racing, which is Jensen Button's team. And then Rosberg X Racing. It says Excite Energy. I thought it was Jensen Button's team, but then it says JBXC. So I might be confused with that. I am trying to figure. I'm confused with that. Excite Racing, because he's driving for them in the Rallycross Championship. So whatever. My fault on that, but the Spanish duo of Carlos Sainz and Leila Sanz finished 5th in race 1. Then in race 2, Rosberg's team gets another victory and extends their lead in the championship. They beat X44, which is Lewis Hamilton's team. Genesis Andretti United with Katie Munnings was 3rd. The Science team 4th, and the Apt team is 5th. So Rosberg team has a 37-point lead over Chip Ganassi, the Chip Ganassi GMC Hummer team. X44 is 3rd, and the Science team is 4th. So it's 3 points between those three. The Excite Energy team, Genesis Andretti United, is tied for 5th. McLaren, Extreme, and JBXC is a 1 point separating them. And then Veloce Racing and Apt team are 9th and 10th in the championship. Their next race will be in September, the Copper X Prix, one race before the last race in November, at the end of November. So big gap between races there for them. Camping World SRX getting into Nashville Fairgrounds results. Uncle Bobby Labonte gets the win at Nashville, former winner there in the Busch Series. Gets a victory first time in about 20 years. He goes and gets a major victory over Marco Andretti. Matt Kenseth.
Matt the Brat.
He goes and makes his debut, brings all the family, all of his kids, all the girls from his current marriage.
How
and
is
Ross
grandpa?
Yeah, Grandpa Matt with Ross being there with his kids, and goes and gets the third place finish. He's going to run the last 3 races, so that'll be pretty cool. Paul Tracy 4th, Helio Castro-Neves 5th, Ryan Newman 6th. Joseph Newgarden won the first heat, the Nashville local, and Cole Williams, the all-star car, had a rough night. Tony Stewart's car was a piece of shit. He lost a ton of points, and likely, unless he wins at Peevely, will not defend his title in the SRX. The points going into this weekend's race at I-55 Speedway, which will see the great Kenny Schrader make a guest appearance. Not sure who else will, and Ernie Francis will be in a 13th car, so that'll be cool. I'm not sure who else will be. I don't know how they didn't give Bubba Pollard points. If Peyton Sellers, Justin Marks, and Cole Williams all got points, I don't know how Bubba Pollard didn't get points. But Bobby Labonte right now has got a 3-point lead on Marco Andretti and 5-point lead on Ryan Newman. Tony Stewart has a win, but he's 31 points behind. And Greg Biffle rounds out the top 5, 37 points behind the leader. And that's really where the battle is with 2 races to go. It's really a 6-horse race, but to be really honest, it's Bobby Labonte, Marco Andretti, and Ryan Newman trying to race for this championship, unless Tony can go and win on the dirt like he did at Knoxville last year and at Eldora as well, which is part of the reason why he was able to go and take down that championship last year. We'll see what happens with that at Peevely this coming weekend. The World Superbikes will race this weekend, Donington Park, one of the great racetracks for motorcycles and cars, to be fair. Alvaro Bautista goes into this round of the championship with a 36-point lead. Defending champion Topak Raskatlioku is 79 points back in third, and Andrea Locatelli is over 100 points back in fourth. So, I mean, the battle is really Alvaro Bautista versus Johnny Ray. There's going to be a couple of British riders making wildcard appearances at Donington Park. Alvaro Bautista, it says, is going to come back to race for Ducati next year in his second stint with them. They're also looking at bringing Danilo Petrucci over to the World Superbike, since right now he's riding for the Warhorse HSBK team in the Moto America Championship, trying to win the American Championship. That's all good. To go and win the Moto America World or Superbike Championship. So we'll see what happens. Garrett Gerloff has had a rough year this year. Can he go and make something happen at Donington Park? I mean, the pace with the top 3 riders relative to the rest of the field is much different. So can Garrett Gerloff get himself on the pace? Toprak Rasgatlioku has tested for Yamaha and MotoGP. He's not going to be on a bike for MotoGP next year. I think for a full season, I think they're going to use him as a wild card, though, because they're going to always want to have data. The notion that Fabio Quartararo wouldn't mind an extra rider out there with getting a little extra data in the field there. IMSA races this week at the Northeast FCP Euro Northeast Grand Prix, Lime Rock Park, one of the great short circuits in short tracks in the Northeast, which will see a GT race only. The website is deciding to freeze while I'm trying to do the show, which is always great. Trying to go and bring up the entry list for that, but I can't do it, which is awesome. I was trying to go and preview this because we have GTD and GTD Pro. But go and get rid. All right. So the whole entire thing crashed. All right. So let's go and see what we can do. So yeah, now we bring it back. Let's go and do that. Entry list, which will see 6 in GTD Pro and 9 in GTD. The Corvette number 3 for Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. Matt Campbell, Matthew Jaminet for Pfaff Motorsports Porsche. We don't know who the other driver will be in the Vassar Sullivan 14 Lexus along with Ben Barnicoat. Ross Gunn, Alex Ribeiro's Harder Racing team's been on a good run here recently, the Aston Martin team. Connor D. Filippi, John Edwards in the BMW, and then Cooper McNeil, Jules Gagnon, and WeatherTech Racing Mercedes running in the GT Pro. Brian Sellers, Madison Snow for Paul Miller Racing, essentially a home race for them. Frankie Montecalvo, Aaron Tielitz in the Lexus. Ryan Hardwick, Jan Halen, the Wright Motorsports Porsche. Romain DeAngelis, Maxime Martin, Harder Racing Team Aston. Mike Skeen, Stephen McAleer, Team Korthoff Motorsports Mercedes. The Carbon with Peregrine Racing Lamborghini is back with Robert McGuinness, Jeff Westphal. After missing Mosport, Ryan Eversley and Aiden Reed for Rick Ware Racing Acura. Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Windward Racing Mercedes. And Robbie Foley, Bill Auberlin, Turner Motorsport BMW in a home game for Will Turner, the car owner there. So he wants to have a victory there for sure. Have to go and bring this up. I don't know what the heck my last thing was over there. See a second here. Who any of these people are. Freaking computer getting overloaded. So yeah, we have IMSA, Lime Rock, and then we have Formula E in Brooklyn, this coming weekend for a doubleheader. That's not what I meant. Formula 3, Formula E, which the driver standings going into this weekend's doubleheader. Eduardo Mortara for Rocket Venturi Racing, even though Rocket isn't paying bills for certain other teams. They are leading by 11 points. Eduardo Mortara by 11 over Jean-Eric Verne, multiple champion of the series, DS Techeetah. Stoffel Van Dorn is 14 points back in third for Mercedes EQ. And Mitch Evans is fourth for Jaguar TCS. And so there's was a 15 points separating the top four in the drivers' standings. Teams Championship, Rocket Venturi has a 2-point lead over DS Techeetah and a 7-point lead over Mercedes EQ. Going into the races this coming weekend, there will be 2 races at Brooklyn, and we don't know if they're going to end up racing there after this year, so it might be the swan song. There will be 2 races at Brooklyn and then 2 races in London at the end of this month, and the final race, 2 races of the year, will be Seoul, South Korea. So there's 3 double headers to end the season in ABB Formula E, coming up, starting with Brooklyn. Let's get into the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Toronto, Josh. 25 cars this weekend. Tatiana Calderon,
Rocket.
Casualty with Rocket not going and paying their bills, which isn't shocking based on what happened with Williams back in years ago, and which is why I made that reference there in the talk about Formula E. But right now, Marcus Ericsson has a 20-point lead on Will Power, exclusive on Peacock Premium. Yeah, that's another thing we have to go and say. So we'll have this show out, obviously, before the race weekend. But this race weekend, the Honda Indy Toronto is going to be a full streaming race weekend. Everything is going to be online. You're not going to see it on TV. If you're trying to find it on your NBC or USA or whatever affiliate, you're not going to see it. So if you want to see it, you have to pay for Peacock Premium, which is $5, $4.99 a month. And you could stream it on your computer, your tablet, TV, if it accesses that. So there is that, Josh. But when it comes to, I guess we talk about that because I think this might be the first major motorsport race in any type of, because I can't think of any other series that's done this. So this is definitely a test case for full streaming, since NFL with Sunday Ticket is going to get moved from DirecTV to a streaming service. Now, which streaming service that may be is to be determined, whether it's Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, or I forget what the other one is, Apple TV. Those are the 3 that are in play based on Florio after watching a video from earlier. A fully streamed weekend of IndyCar racing. They already do Indy Lights and whatever else on there. But Marcus Ericsson, 20-point lead. getting into this season, getting into what happened. Scott McLaughlin winning the last race at Mid-Ohio, trying to get into the all drivers of championship standings. 20-point lead on Will Power. Joseph Newgarden third, Palou fourth, Pato O'Ward fifth, Scott Dixon, who hasn't won a race yet, is in sixth. Scott McLaughlin, 2 wins, is seventh. Rossi, Pagano, Colton Herta is going to do a 2-day test in 10th. So street courses, I think Andretti Autosport has something on street courses. Colton is able to do some work there. Scott Dixon, he wins generally at most places, but street courses aren't exactly as solid as permanent road courses. Alex Palou, both of those guys are looking for a win. The Penske guys have been able to maximize their position. 2 of the top 3, 3 of the top 7. They're going to stay with this trio next year. But Marcus Ericsson, of course, tried to launch himself into the sky at Nashville last year and won that race. He's assimilated very well to these type of racetracks. Toronto is a very rough, very narrow circuit. A lot to play for here this weekend, leading into basically the start of the rush towards the end of the season. A lot of races that we're going to see here, essentially over the next 2 months. We're going to have a doubleheader at Iowa coming up. We're going to have Indy Road Course during the NASCAR weekend at the end of this month. You're going to have Nashville, Gateway, and the season finale at Laguna Seca all coming up, all in quick time frame. So if you're able to get momentum coming out of this weekend at Toronto, first race at Toronto in a few years because of the pandemic, it could set you up on a path to possibly go and win this championship.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about this race at Toronto. It's been a while since we've been to this course. Did not have this race held in 2021 or 2020 due to COVID-19 and everything, and this be the first time we've had it since 2019, and uh, you know, almost don't remember what the racing is at this race, but the like you said, an Andretti team, specifically Colton Herta, they seem to be really good on street courses. But of course, they've had their recent implosion that they had at Mid Ohio. Expect that they will have put that behind them. But Andretti's made a lot of mistakes this year. So we're gonna see what they can do as a team. I think at the last street course that we had or at least earlier in the season, we had IndyCar racing at. I'm looking at the schedule just to make sure. So the last race we had on street course was uh, at Detroit, and Will Power won that. But we also had Long Beach, which Romain Grosjean finished second, and Alexander Rossi was in eighth. So those guys, both of those cars were pretty up there during that race. So yeah, I would expect Andretti to have a really good race. We'll see if they're able to keep it together. So I think that expect them to be out up front. Also, Scott McLaughlin, finally getting another win at Mid Ohio 2 weeks ago. Can he get his third victory of the season and possibly inch closer to the championship? Right now, of course, Marcus Ericsson, points leader, like you said earlier. Scott McLaughlin, can he be able to get up there close to the points lead with the third victory, put himself back into the conversation of winning the championship? We'll see if he can do that. Will Power, of course, it's mentioned earlier, the last winner of the street course at Detroit, can he continue the success that he had there, bring it to the street course, and close the gap on the championship to Marcus Ericsson being only 20 points out? This is going to be an interesting race, of course. They are making some changes to the pit road. 22 cars last time at this race in 2019, and now we'll have 25 cars. So they got to lengthen pit road boxes, 35-foot boxes. They want to have them at 40, but they can do at 35. So it's going to be interesting on that end, entering and exiting pit road on a smaller race course that isn't, designed or doesn't have as much capacity. It's going to be interesting to see everybody fit all the cars in one spot at this racetrack. So Canadian Toronto Grand Prix, first time we've had it in a while. Should be interesting, and of course, it is a rough racetrack, rough street course. A lot of things to look out for, and definitely you're gonna have to nail the car setup, nail the suspension setup, and be able to continue to get the setup right here. So it's gonna be an interesting race, and I expect Andretti to be up there, but don't know if they'll close. And I think it's probably gonna end up being like between one of the Penske cars or possibly one of the Chip Ganassi Racing cars.
What do you think? Well, if you're thinking it's one of the Penske
Yeah.
cars or one of the Ganassi cars, who do you think is going to win on
Well,
Sunday?
I think I said earlier, Scott McLaughlin would be a good race. I mean, he won the first race of the year at St. Petersburg, so I would expect him to be up front. And
Over
then,
Colton
yeah,
Herta.
over Colton Herta. And then I also, he's done well on street courses, I feel like. And then I would also expect Alex Palou or, give Marcus Ericsson a nod to as well, or, Scott Dixon. I think any of those three Chip Ganassi racing cars can be up front and possibly win this race and shut out Andretti at Toronto, which Michael Andretti had 7 victories at this racetrack. So a lot of history there for the Andretti team and the family.
Yeah, it was one of Michael's best racetracks for sure. One of where the most wins he ever had at one circuit. 7 wins. Won the first race for Reynard back in 1994 when they debuted in the IndyCar series. Won the first race, or won for Swift there. Won for Lola multiple times, of course, because of Carl Haas. So it was a great track for him. Colton Herta coming off of testing at Portimao for McLaren. I think he's gonna be fired up. I give him a lot of. I think the betting on him would be good if he can qualify well. But I also look at Alex Palou and Scott Dixon. If they're trying to win this championship, they need to start it now. Scott Dixon has been known to make comebacks. This is the run for 7 to join all those legendary names. It starts this weekend. If he can put together a great qualifying run, put himself in position, get a win, get a top 3 finish, whatever, but definitely want to get a win, because Iowa, I think, is going to be Joseph Newgarden alley. It's one of his best racetracks. If Joseph Newgarden can go out there and get a win at Toronto, get a 4th win of the year, he's going to basically tell everybody he wants number 3. You have to qualify well at Toronto. There ain't going to be a whole lot of passing. There are going to be cautions and safety cars and the whole bit. I'm picking Scott Dixon to go out there and win this race at Toronto. He hasn't won in a while. If it wasn't him, I was going to say Palou. I think it's going to be a Ganassi weekend. They're going to go and put together the qualifying. Marcus Ericsson's going to consolidate his points. You have to. This is the stretch run. The stretch run starts now. They're basically going to run the rest of this calendar out in 2 months. So if you're able to start something right here, as I said prior to throwing to Josh, you can win this championship. Scott Dixon has won championships as the leader and done it. He's lost championships in the final race, trying to possibly go and win it. And he's figured out ways to come back after nobody thought he was going to win it and win a championship. That's why he's a 6-time champion. He's one of the greatest open wheel drivers ever lived. And if he's trying to win number 7 this year, he has to start right now. And I think he does at Toronto this weekend. Getting into the last bit of the thing before last bit of the podcast here, we'll talk about Cup and XFinity at New Hampshire. There's the Am Better 301 this coming weekend at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. The entry list is there are 36. Yeah, they have the 36 chartered cars. Josh Balickian is 77. 15 has JJ Yaley. Other than that, everybody else is the same. Going to New Hampshire Motor Speedway, they haven't brought out the changes to the flat tracks that they're trying to test to make racing better. So I would assume that practice and qualifying are going to really dictate what we see on Sunday. I mean, the Hendrick cars dominated Atlanta both times. Hendrick and Gibbs at Richmond were the best cars. Do we see somebody outside of one of those two teams do something, Josh? I honestly don't, but what are you looking at for New Hampshire this coming weekend?
Well, I mean, I think you got to include, Team Trackhouse in this conversation too. They've been up there quietly, this whole season, and I think you can't count them out, especially a track like New Hampshire. So when we go to New Hampshire, I mean, you talked about the diffuser; they're not changing it yet, and I'm gonna assume. I mean, I feel like maybe that change is something that would take place or better at slower speedway like Martinsville or Richmond. Tracks that aren't as high speed as New Hampshire. I feel like New Hampshire has pretty long straights and flat corners, which might help with this package. This package might render itself to be better at, but I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this package plays out with the progressive banking here and relatively flat surface. And again, this car does turn more like a road course car. It's going to handle more like a road course car, so it might take these New Hampshire flat turns better than what it did before. So it may end up being like what we saw at Martinsville, but again, this is a race taking place during the daytime, so and more than likely going to be in the middle of the sun. So do you think that's going to be looking a lot different than maybe what we saw at Martinsville? And we'll see if they're able to go up against each other and make a pass, make a move for the win, that sort of thing. So we'll see. But yeah, you talked about Hendrick and Gibbs. Yeah, expect Martin Truex to be out there. Denny Hamlin, of course, won back in Richmond back in the spring. Definitely think Kyle Busch probably be up there too. Then on the Hendrick side, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and probably maybe Alex Bowman as a wild card. I feel like William Byron probably be up around there too, but he's been ever since his second victory and getting humbled by Joey Logano at Darlington. He's kind of disappeared off the map, and we haven't really heard too much from him this year. So we'll have to see. But any of those cars, plus I think Ross Chastain's definitely going to be mixing it up here, and then I think the other teams look for somebody like Tyler Reddick to be really good, and then we'll pivot back to Joe Gibbs Racing because I forgot. Chris Bell's had multiple victories in Xfinity at this track, so can't count him out too. So really, the entire
Finished second last year in
and
this race.
that's true, yeah. And Chris Bell's definitely really good at New Hampshire in the stock cars, so it's gonna be an interesting weekend, especially since we haven't seen the racing here at this course or at this track with the new car, the next gen car. So it's gonna be could be either a really wild race or really boring race, and who knows, maybe field mileage comes into play like that one year when Tony Stewart ran out of gas on the last lap in 2010 to start the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but I think for me, I'm gonna pick Martin Truex to win this race, and talked about it earlier with Corey LaJoie, possibly causing a shakeup. Well, he's actually still in 31st in points, and I think if he would have won that race in Atlanta, he wouldn't have been in 30th, although it would have been close. I mean, Brad Keselowski is not that far away, but he's still, would be still outside the top 10. So it's not quite the shakeup that we think it might be in terms of shaking up the playoff field. But Martin Truex has not won yet this year, so if he wins, then it definitely will shake up the playoff field for sure. So and then that'll bring it down to two drivers left who haven't won that need to win in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but it's gonna be an interesting race for sure.
It's a good point you brought up there. I mean, when it comes to what Corey LaJoie was trying to do there on Sunday, him going and losing. I mean, when you look at what happened in that race, Clyde goes and gets the 20 points for the two stages, and then you talk about whatever the hell. I think and then you get 20. Like, I need to go and look at what the hell the point standings are. What they do, they have to go and explain points explanation. There you go. Yeah, finish is 40 points. Yeah, the second place is 35. So under the pretense that, say, Corey LaJoie would have finished second, Corey LaJoie did get second or stage point in the second stage. So he ended up only scoring 17 points with the one stage point. If he had gotten the second place finish, that would have been based on what Ross Chastain has. It would have been 35. So just based on 16 and 35, that would have been 19 points difference. He's 44 points behind Brad Keselowski. It's kind of similar to what Kyle Busch had to do when he had his broken leg, and of course Tony Stewart when he had his broken back in 2016 when at Sonoma. I guess it wasn't as competitive back then, but Tony had to win and then get himself in the top 30. He did. Got himself to about 25th in points prior to the playoff. Corey LaJoie's had a rough year, had a lot of DNFs. But going into this weekend's race in New Hampshire, Eric Almirola, defending race winner at New Hampshire. He needs a win to make the playoff. Things are working out to where maybe Eric Almirola is going to continue racing instead of Ryan Preece taking over that ride. Maybe Kevin Harvick decides to call it quits. That might be something. The way he's racing this year, he kind of seems like he's trying to retire. He should be on TV anyway. Take over, be in the booth with Mike Joy, and if Tom Brady can get $300 million or whatever from Fox, Kevin Harvick could get $100 million. I mean, why not? then he could go and fund Ryan Preece taking over his car, and he can fund his son's career.
Yeah, he
Since
may as well
his
split
son,
off and bring back Kevin Harvick Incorporated.
well, they already have their marketing and PR firm. My thing is, he could go and fund Ryan Preece's car, and he can fund Keelan driving in Formula 3 because that's what Keelan wants to do. Or he could put it in a freaking put it in something and make sure it's ready so that when he wants to go to Formula 3 and Formula 2, um, he can go and do work. But yeah, there is that. When it comes to Stewart Haas Racing at the moment, only one car is in the playoff, and that's Chase Briscoe. Kevin Harvick's on the bump spot, and he is 19 points behind Christopher Bell, who is, as Josh mentioned, is great at this racetrack. Martin Truex, it's one of his 17 home tracks. Blaney, those are the three guys that are highest in points that haven't won. Eric Jones, I think, is more about Daytona, trying to go and get a win there. Austin Dillon, he's not really that good. Dillon right now is 20th in points behind Denny Hamlin. He's only a point ahead of Michael McDowell. As it stands for this race on Sunday, I mean, Christopher Bell, I would go and pick him, but Adam Stevens got suspended because Joe Gibbs decided to make a pit crew change, took tire changer and carrier from Bubba Wallace's team and put him on a 20 car, and then took one tire changer and carrier and swapped him over to the 23. In the process, there was a loose wheel left by the 20 team that has left Adam Stevens suspended for 4 weeks. So it's a terrible time to have something like that happen. Bell is 8th in points overall. Third of the guys who don't have a win, but and he's got that 19-point lead on Kevin Harvick. But it's going to be hard for him to try to make this happen. But Christopher Bell's the kind of guy that likes adversity. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with Christopher Bell, get the W on Sunday, 14th different winner this year. Wild card selection to possibly go and backdoor something. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to pick a wild card. I mean, Josh, you mentioned Tyler Reddick. I was thinking, and you brought up Trackhouse. I'll say Suarez. So my picks are Christopher Bell, which, I mean, I could probably swap them either way, really. Christopher Bell, Daniel Suarez. That's who I'm taking this weekend at New Hampshire for the Cup Series. Let's get into the Xfinity Series. There's going to be some Cup guys.
Actually, I do have a wild card I would like to throw out there. What about
go ahead.
Chris Buescher? Chris Buescher, he could be somebody that shows up at New Hampshire. I don't have his record here, but they've had some runs recently. The RFK number 17 that they could. I'm not going to say that they would win, but I would not be surprised if they somehow finished in the top 10 or made appearances in the top 5 throughout the race.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, I like that Chris Buescher pick. I thought Chris Buescher would have had a little better run this weekend at Atlanta, but it's not his cup of tea. Super speedway racing, it never really has been. He's a guy that's more meant for road courses and more of the shorter tracks. To be fair, but I was trying to bring up that. Yeah, 18 out of 19. Yeah, I mean, you're going just, he finished 10th at Phoenix, just as an aside, 15th at Martinsville, um, 15th at Richmond. So that and Dover, he started on pole and finished 8th. So he's definitely been the better performer. He's outperformed his car owner, and that's not a bad call. And it's a racetrack where you can go and get crazy with some strategy. Scott Graves, I mean, they got suspended. He lost his crew chief. So it looks like Scott Graves got suspended. So that would be something if he was able to pull one out there for sure. Getting into the Xfinity Series race at New Hampshire, 39 cars for 38 spots. So there will be one car going home. People that are making rare starts. I'm trying to go through. Josh Williams has been moved to the number 5 BJ McLeod Motorsports team there. Joe Graff, he's whenever. I'm trying to go through. Trevor Bayne will be in the 18 car this weekend. Derek Griffiths, Sam Hunt, number 26th. Awuji out there as a caution. Patrick Emmerling, the modified ace, getting an opportunity. We'll see how long he'll be able to race. CJ McLaughlin, another caution out there. Howie DiSavino and Julia Landauer will be driving for Alpha Prime racing this weekend. That'll be something. We'll see if Julia gets any media attention. She ain't bad looking. Bobby McCarty for Harman's team. They're going to have to qualify on speed. Ty Dillon will be driving for Big Machine Racing. So he'll be doing double duty this weekend. JJ Illy will be driving the 66 car. William Byron will be driving the 88 for JR Motorsports, not the 17. Akinori Ogata in the 13 for MBM. Matt Mills will be in the 78 for BJ McLeod Motorsports. So a few Cup guys in there, former Cup guys. I'll go and start here in regards to Xfinity. We got a while to go before the playoffs, honestly. But I kind of feel like it's going to be a somewhat of a chalk kind of race. I think Trevor Bayne. I'm going to go and pick Trevor Bayne.
It's a wild card, but a solid
Yeah.
one.
I'm going to pick Trevor Bayne. They're great at this racetrack. He's been out there saying, I need to win. I picked this car and wanted to get in this car because I'm going to win. Well, it's an opportunity race. I don't really see much of who. I mean, Junior Motorsports is the best team in this series by far. You have Allgaier, you have Josh Berry, who is great at this type of racing, but you have Sheldon Creed, who's good at flat and road courses and stuff, and he needs a win, but he needs to qualify well. Honestly think Trevor Bayne, this is the race weekend for him to go and finally get that win in the Gibbs car. If it was a regular, that's why I win. I guess it's a wild card, but if it's a regular, I'm going to pick my guy who I picked at the start of the year for the championship. I'm going to pick Josh Berry. So my picks are 18 and 8. How about you, Josh?
Well, I'm going to go with, you go with the 8 car, I'll go with the 88 car, and Bill Byron going out winning the Junior Motorsports Cup entry, basically, there. And then I think as a wild card, this is a tough decision, but I'm gonna roll with I'm going to I'm gonna go with Sam Mayer in the uh so pick both junior cars as a wild card. He's been up there, but he's still a rookie, still got a lot to learn and everything. So we'll see what he can do at this racetrack and see if he can crack out a top 10 finish as a rookie here at New Hampshire.
Yeah, I don't think it would be surprising. I mean, it is a wild card because he hasn't won yet and he's a rookie, but it wouldn't be surprising. Sam Mayer's done a lot of work on them short tracks in his young career in ARCA, K&N. I mean, it's ARCA and K&N, the same goddamn thing. Lightly models. He has the talent. That's why he's in that car. But you need to harness that talent and ability and form it. And he's like, the point is, he's that kind of driver. He's like Plato. You need to get him. You need to get him ready. You need to get him ready for that next stage in his career. Hendrick doesn't really have any openings for that, but he's a guy that would be. They're projecting next level for him. Junior Motorsports. That's a project guy to go and make him a star. And wouldn't shock me if he goes and gets that first win at New Hampshire. But taking Will Byron in the star car is a solid bet for sure. So we've gone through all of the previews and everything that went on. So let's get to you, man. What's going on in regards to sim racing? And, I see people posting about F1 2022. I see people like Ruby and our Grid Talk, whatever deal, talking about her exploits on F1 2022. We have iRacing. We have all kinds of stuff on the sim deal, and you are great on that. So let us know what you're doing and what you're seeing in regards to sim racing.
Yeah, of course. F1 2022. I did try that this weekend and download on PlayStation, and I've only done one race so far. And they as well the game was still installing, so I just had the one racetrack by rain, and I was able to pick which car I wanted. Pick McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo. Of course, he's an Earnhardt guy, so that's who I go with in Formula One. But um, went with him, and uh, it's I don't know, it's hard to I guess like as I grew up playing controllers, with NASCAR Thunder and EA Sports NASCAR games, but I've gotten used to the finer control of having a wheel, with iRacing and all that stuff, and then going back to a controller, it's kind of weird, and there's definitely a difference of car control and that stuff. So the controller thing is gonna be interesting on PlayStation for F1 2022. So I gotta go and look at gotta just practice, I guess. But I could also just download the version on Windows and double dip and download the Windows 20 F1 2020 F1 22 game and go on there and just play it on the wheel, which I might do. We'll see. So could do that, and then also with I mean, somehow I have more friends who have Xbox than PlayStation. So Windows, of course, I think you can play on online with people who have Xbox, since it's Microsoft platform, and that you can race together with or play together with. So we'll see. I may try to get my friends to get the game as well, introduce them to F1. So we'll try to do that, but I don't have any really real thoughts on the game so far. Although it seems like they are trying to uh, match the cars in the game to their real life counterparts. Which I guess in the race that I did, Sergio Perez won, which maybe a little bit different because you expect Verstappen to win, but Red Bull car winning up front, of course, matches what happened in so far in real life with Red Bull winning everything so far, or most of everything so far this year. So yeah, there's that. Then of course iRacing tried to do the Ferrari 488 GT3 series at Spa the past week and learned how to drive around Spa in that car, and um, Had a lot of off tracks, trying to maximize the speed off of Rouge, and going down that straight, trying to maximize the speed down the long straight, and ran off track a couple times on the curving. There was a couple of times where going into the hairpin chicane before start finish line at Spa, I tried to dive bomb, and I thought I made it through, but then I got clipped and spun out. So it was a lot of experimentation, I guess, trying different things, trying to get used to different car, and trying to figure out a way to pass. Because I felt like it'd be easier to pass at this at Spa, but it's actually a lot harder to pass than it's harder to do than what you think. Easier said than done. So that's kind of what I'm doing on iRacing, trying to expand, go into a different series, try something out or try something new. The NASCAR 87 cars were at Pocono. Tried that. I think I did 1 or 2 races on Pocono. With the 87 car, you have to throw it into third gear in the corners, so race like that. Tried to get up there in the top 10, and I finished, I think, in 5th place there. And the racing was interesting, and there was a lot of guys getting into it in the corners. They're definitely throwing it pretty deep in the corner, and guys were spinning out and hitting the wall at different points during the track. So a lot of stuff that happened there. But yeah, that's mostly what I did on iRacing, was those 2 series this past weekend, and then of course F1 on the PlayStation there. So with that, the streams, when I stream, of course, located at Twitch TV/USailor2. So when I'm live, you follow me on there, and when I'm live, you get the notification. I think it says I'm live, or I'll tell you if I'm going on stream, going live. So you can look at that, and then of course we'll try to post the link on the Twitter page to make sure that you can see me on there. And of course, our YouTube page for this channel, for this podcast, Gripster Podcast YouTube. Go on there, subscribe, see our latest videos, promote it, and share if you think it's interesting enough, and go out and watch our videos, comment, hit the like button, give us feedback. If you want to see our faces as we talk, give our takes, give our hot takes, go there and follow us there. And then, of course, follow me at JP Huffine on all social media, on Twitter and everywhere else. So yeah, it's where you can follow me, where you can look at our video platform for the show. So I'll let you finish out the close.
Yep, as always, thank you, Josh, for everything you provide, and creating YouTube page, and for being you, and providing your hot takes when you decide to provide your hot takes. And also, like, thinking about Ross Chastain and kind of being okay with it, like your boy Dale Jr. He's kind of in between. While Jeff Burton's really angry about him, and Steve Letart's really angry about it, Dale Jr.'s like, I like his aggressiveness, but he needs to go and cool it down a little bit. It's kind of like his mullet-headed moron driving his flagship car in the Xfinity series. For me, you can follow me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can follow us at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. I've done hits on the Grid Talk podcast, as I mentioned earlier. Posted about it, F1 Chronicle, at F1 Chronicle. I make regular appearances on there, provide my takes. I've hosted as well. Hasn't been as smooth, mainly because it's way more responsible of a show than what we do here. It's way more organic on this side of the aisle, and of the aisles, because it's a England-based podcast. But for us, we're here in the United States. We're on Gripster Podcast. You can find us on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean's where we host. Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Verbal. As Josh mentioned, we have Gripster Podcast YouTube page where you can go and see our beautiful faces. If you want to watch us raw, uncut, unfiltered, we're a great podcast to listen to during your work day. If you want to go and listen to us in the middle of your 8-hour shift, it's a perfect thing to get you right through the day. That's what the Gripster Podcast is all about. We will be back next week for episode 124, talking about the Indy, Honda Indy Toronto. I was about to say Molson Indy Toronto, slipping into the old school. Honda Indy Toronto, we'll talk about NASCAR Cup XFinity at New Hampshire. And then we will preview the French Grand Prix for Formula One. It'll be a busy weekend there for all Formula Series there. Talk about IndyCar at Iowa. They're going to have a doubleheader at Iowa Speedway, first time in a few years, so that'll be great. For IndyCars, they've ran ARCA there a few weeks ago, so that'll be a great thing to see. NASCAR will be at Pocono. I may or may not go to that. I'm in between at the moment in regards to whether I'm going to attend, based on a whole lot of stuff. We'll preview all that and everything else that is going on in the world of motorsports and review here on the Gripster Podcast. We're getting close to NFL training camp, so we got to get into that as well. Jamie Erdahl was just announced as the new host of Good Morning Football. She has, small shoes to fill since Kay Adams is a very tiny lady, but a lot to fill in regards to the personality and what that show's about. So curious to see what she's going to bring to the table here in a couple weeks' time with Kyle and Peter and whoever the hell they put in the Nate chair. Credit to her. She's a great sideline reporter, but taking over that spot, probably doing it because she has a kid and has a family. She wants to be closer to home. We'll see what happens with that. And we'll talk about football. We'll talk about racing. Talk about anything that's going on. Colorado's got a goalie. We got a goalie from the Rangers, likely to be our new starter. To try and get a second Stanley Cup. All the Colorado merchandise is selling out real quick because I'd have had to get 2XL jerseys if I wanted to go and get the one with the Stanley Cup patch on it. But I'm like, you know what? I got like so many t-shirts coming that says Stanley Cup champions. I'll just pass on the jersey. But with that, thank you for listening to Gripster Podcast. Tell everybody, for the people that do listen, go and tell them about this show. If you like unfiltered, unscripted, or motorsports content, that's what we are. And yeah, there is bias, but there's a reason why there's bias. It's our show. We're not mainstream by any stretch of the imagination. I've never been mainstream. Josh is way more diplomatic than I'll ever be. That's why he brings the balance to the whole program. That's why he's the brains of the operation. I'll say that. But either way, for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to Gripster Podcast. We'll see you next week for episode 124. A lot to talk about. Reviewing and previewing. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Take care.